If I had listened to everything school taught me, I wouldn't be where I am. I'd be stuck in a box, chasing approval, playing it safe, and hoping someone else would give me permission to be great. Let's be real, school teaches you to pass, not to win. It rewards conformity, not creativity. It hands you a syllabus, gives you a seat in a row, and tells you the goal is to get all the right answers. But life doesn't work like that. Life doesn't care if you filled in the right bubble on a test. Life cares if you can adapt, persist, and create something real when nobody's watching. When I was sitting in those classrooms, I didn't feel like I was learning how to survive out here. I was learning how to memorize. I was learning how to follow instructions. But what I wasn't learning was how to fail, how to bounce back, how to make something from scratch, or how to keep going when nothing's working. And those are the exact things you need if you're going to succeed in the real world. Nobody pulled me aside and said, "Hey, if you want to actually build something that matters, you're going to have to try and fail in public. You're going to have to work when everyone else is relaxing. You're going to have to do things no one understands yet." Instead, it was all about deadlines, rubrics, and grades, as if success could be measured by letters on a report card. But here's what no one tells you when you're stuck in that system. The real world doesn't grade you. It judges your impact, and that impact comes from doing, not waiting. I remember trying things for the first time with zero experience. I remember launching projects, starting content, creating with no plan, just a feeling. School had trained me to wait for instructions. Life forced me to figure it out as I went. That transition was brutal. Nobody clapped. Nobody handed me a checklist. But slowly I started to realize something. Every failure taught me more than any textbook ever did. See, in school, failure is the thing you're taught to avoid. In life, failure is your best teacher. You try something, it flops, you learn. You test an idea, it doesn't work, you pivot. You spend weeks on something, and nobody notices you reflect, you analyze, you evolve. That process is success. It's messy, it's frustrating, and it's real, but it's not what we're trained for. We're taught to raise our hands, to wait our turn, to play by the rules. But the most successful people I know didn't wait. They moved, they tested, they obsessed. They built things before they had all the answers. They kept showing up even when it didn't make sense to anyone else. That's what I had to learn, not from a class. From trial and error, from the grind, from doing things the hard way, over and over again, until something finally clicked. There's something else school didn't teach me: how to deal with silence. You don't realize how lonely it can be until you're putting in work, and nobody's responding. You're making videos, writing scripts, creating challenges, pushing content, and it's like shouting into the void. In school, you do the work and you get a grade. Feedback is automatic. But in the real world, you can work for months and hear nothing. That's when most people quit, because they were trained to expect feedback from someone else. But the truth is, when you're building something worth doing, you give yourself feedback. You stay locked in. You course correct. You don't quit just because no one's clapping yet. And let's talk about passion. School tries to tell you what to care about, what to focus on. It's structured, it's measured, but passion doesn't work like that. Passion isn't clean. Passion is messy, obsessive, all-consuming. When I found what I really wanted to build, no one had to tell me to study it. I was already obsessed. I watched, learned, tested, repeated. I couldn't stop thinking about it. That kind of drive doesn't come from a classroom. It comes from curiosity and obsession, two things school doesn't know how to handle. It punishes obsession. But obsession is the gateway to mastery. I wasn't trying to pass anymore. I was trying to break through, and that's another thing. In school, everyone is graded on the same scale, but in life, there's no curve, there's just value. If you can provide value, real value, people will notice. They'll show up, they'll share what you've made, but nobody's going to hand you a rubric and tell you what the correct project is. You have to decide what's worth building. You have to chase the ideas that make you light up. And if you're wrong, cool, you'll pivot, you'll learn, you'll go again, that trial and error loop is success. School made it feel like making mistakes was dangerous, like getting something wrong would follow you forever. But that mindset holds people back. It makes them scared to try. In reality, the people who move fast and fail fast are the ones who eventually win, because they get through the failures faster than everyone else. They treat each misstep as data. They don't crumble when something doesn't work, they study it. Let me be clear, I'm not anti-education. I'm pro-learning, and there's a huge difference. Education is structured, rigid, predictable. Learning is wild, unpredictable, experimental. You don't wait to be taught. You seek, you chase, you build. That's how I got here. Not because someone gave me the answers, but because I refused to stop asking better questions. And here's what no test score will ever measure: how bad you want it, how long you're willing to go unnoticed, how deep you're willing to dig when there's no guarantee of reward. That's what success actually demands. Not a perfect resume, not a shiny GPA, but grit, fire, relentless consistency. The real world wants to know one thing: can you keep showing up when nothing's working? School didn't teach me how to build an audience from scratch. It didn't teach me how to script a story that hooks attention in 5 seconds. It didn't teach me how to lead a team, how to study analytics, how to reinvest every dollar back into what I'm building. It didn't teach me how to fail publicly, how to stay sane when millions of people are watching you either succeed or flop. It didn't prepare me for the pressure. It didn't teach me how to be creative on command. It didn't train me to go bigger every time, even when that meant risking everything I'd already built. But all of that I learned through doing, through trying things that didn't make sense, through giving away everything I had just to create something unforgettable. That's what taught me how to succeed. Not school, not some checklist, but the willingness to try until it works. So if you're out there thinking that school didn't prepare you for this, you're right, it didn't, but you're not behind. You're just in the real class now. The class where the final exam is every single day. The class where there are no instructions, no guarantees, and no shortcuts. Just you, your ideas, your discipline, and the decision to start. Because once you stop waiting and start moving, everything changes. What school never taught me was that the fastest way to learn is to do, to try, to screw up, to try again. Not to raise your hand and wait for permission, but to start. You don't get graded in the real world, you get feedback from life itself. And that feedback is ruthless, raw, and always honest. School teaches you that success is about knowing the right answer, but in the real world, the answer doesn't exist yet because you're the one who has to create it. No one tells you that. You grow up thinking if you just follow the rules and check all the boxes, you'll end up successful. But success doesn't reward rule followers. It rewards problem solvers, risk takers, creators, the people who are willing to break the rules if it means building something that actually matters. When I started creating, I didn't have a plan, I didn't have a team. I didn't have a budget. What I had was obsession, the kind of obsession that made me stay up all night editing, the kind that made me study every single piece of content I could find, frame by frame, pixel by pixel, trying to figure out why something worked and why something else didn't. No classroom taught me that kind of intensity. I had to find it myself. I had to become my own teacher, and when you do that, when you start relying on you to teach you, everything shifts. Suddenly, you're not looking for approval. You're looking for results. You're not trying to impress a teacher. You're trying to beat yesterday's version of yourself. You're not chasing a grade. You're chasing mastery. That's the real difference. And nobody hands that to you. Every mistake I made taught me something no textbook could. I learned how to read data because my videos were flopping. I learned how to write better hooks because people were clicking off in the first 10 seconds. I learned how to craft ideas that people felt, not just watched, and none of that came from waiting for instructions. It came from action, relentless, obsessive action. The truth is, school conditions you to wait for someone else to validate you. The real world couldn't care less. It doesn't hand out gold stars for effort. It only rewards output and the value that output gives to others. That's a brutal lesson, but it's also freeing. Because once you realize no one's going to save you, no one's going to give you the answer, no one's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Now's the time to start," you're finally free to just go. When I started experimenting with content, I failed constantly, but I didn't see it as failure. I saw it as progress. Every failed attempt was just me getting closer to something that worked. I'd watch the numbers, tweak the structure, shift the pacing, change the story. It was a game, and every wrong move was feedback, not failure, just data. That's the thing school never explained. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's the foundation of it. Think about this. If you try something 100 times and fail 99 times, but the 100th time it works, that's still a win. That 1 out of 100, it changes your life. But in school, 99 failures would tank your grade. In life, they're just the cost of finding the one thing that hits. That's why success requires people who aren't afraid to look stupid, who aren't afraid to be wrong, who keep showing up long after everyone else gave up because the results weren't instant. I became obsessed with testing everything. I'd watch videos in slow motion just to see how pacing affected viewer retention. I'd /B test thumbnails, titles, intros, scenes, endings, everything. School never taught me to test and optimize. It taught me to accept the structure, but in the real world, the structure is always changing. So you have to be faster than the curve. You have to be the curve, and here's the part most people miss. Obsession doesn't feel like work. When you're locked in on something you care about, time disappears. You're not watching the clock, you're chasing the edge. That edge where the next breakthrough might happen. That edge where most people stop. That's where you get better, not from reading about it, not from talking about it, from doing it over and over until you break through. There were times when I spent days analyzing a single video just to figure out what made people care. Not because someone assigned it to me, because I wanted to know. That kind of hunger, you can't teach that. You either have it or you find it through pain, through failure, through drive. School doesn't reward hunger. It rewards balance, but I didn't want balance. I wanted to win, and here's what I found. When you start executing consistently, you get clarity. You stop asking, "Am I good enough?" and start asking, "How do I get better?" You stop trying to impress and start trying to improve. That shift, it's everything, because once you're focused on improvement over approval, you become unstoppable. No one can take that from you. Not rejection, not criticism, not failure, because every no becomes fuel. One of the biggest lies we were told is that knowledge is power. It's not. Applied knowledge is power. Everyone has access to the same information now, but very few apply it consistently. Very few take the time to master one thing deeply. They skim, they dabble, they try something once and give up. But the people who succeed, they go deep, they go all in. They apply until something gives. That's what I learned outside the classroom. You don't need all the answers to start. You need the courage to begin. You learn what you need along the way. You fail forward. You build as you go, and every failure, every flop, every awkward launch, every ignored post, every missed opportunity, it's all part of the path. There's no shortcut around that pain, but there's growth inside it. You just have to be willing to keep showing up. No one taught me that time is the most valuable currency. In school, your schedule is set. Your days are structured, but in the real world, time is your responsibility. Every minute you waste is gone forever, and the people who understand that, who treat every day like a chance to push the needle, to sharpen a skill, to try something bold, they pull ahead. Not because they're smarter, because they're more consistent. I built everything on consistency, not talent, not luck. Just showing up again and again and again until the work spoke for itself, until the audience started to notice, until the opportunities showed up. And that consistency didn't come from discipline alone. It came from obsession. I loved the process, I lived in it, and that made it easy to keep going, even when nothing was working. You want to know what separates people who succeed from people who don't. It's not their background, it's not their education, it's not their money, it's how many experiments they're willing to run before they get it right. That's it. That's the game, who can take more swings at the plate without letting the strikeouts stop them. School taught me how to study for tests. Life taught me how to study myself, my patterns, my habits. My results? I learned how to become my own feedback loop. If something flopped, I didn't complain. I broke it down. If something popped, I studied why. That mindset, constant, hungry, relentless reflection, is the difference between staying stuck and leveling up. So if you're out there and you feel like you don't have the answers good, you're exactly where you need to be, because the people with all the answers are usually the ones who stopped growing, the real movers. The real creators, they're the ones who are always asking better questions. They're experimenting, building, failing, adjusting, living the process. What school never taught me was that the moment you stop asking for permission is the moment you start becoming dangerous. Because now you're not waiting, you're doing, and when you do enough, with enough intensity, enough feedback, and enough heart, you win. It might take longer than you think. It might hurt more than you expected. But it will happen because action compounds, obsession compounds, consistency compounds, and once you feel that momentum, once you've pushed through the doubt, the silence, the embarrassment, the friction, and you've still chosen to build, that's when the world starts to notice. That's when success stops being a dream and starts becoming inevitable. So here's the truth. Success was never hiding in a textbook. It was never locked behind a report card or buried inside a lecture. It was in the reps, the risks, the relentless pursuit of better. Everything school forgot to teach life forced me to learn, and I'm grateful for that, because when you stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself, everything changes. The world doesn't care about your GPA. It cares about what you create, what you build, and how far you're willing to push to make something real. It rewards people who show up with ideas, not excuses. With action, not just ambition, you don't need permission, you need obsession, you need hunger. You need the kind of work ethic that makes people question if you're crazy, because that's the only way you'll ever break through the noise. This is your shot, not someday, not when it's perfect. Now, start something, fail fast, learn faster, keep going, and don't stop until your work speaks so loud the world can't ignore it. That's what school never taught me about success. But life did, and it changed everything.